Hi, my name is Seth Schneider, and I'm a software engineer here at Intel. Today we'll be looking at the live analysis portion of the GPA workflow and looking at some of those components more in depth. If you're new to GPA, you can check out some of our introductory videos and workflow videos in the description below. In this video, we'll be focusing on the live analysis portion of the workflow. We'll first look at a DirectX application in the HUD, and then move on to an OpenGLES application in System Analyzer. In the workflow videos, we briefly went over live analysis. Today, I would like to look at Graphics Monitor and System Analyzer in more detail. So first, let's start with Graphics Monitor. First, we click on the program, Run as Administrator. You'll see Graphics Monitor is in our tray in the bottom right-hand corner. If we right-click on Graphics Monitor, we will see a couple different things. Let's first look at the profiles. With Graphics Monitor, you can create custom profiles to customize your HUD. Here on the first screen, you can see that you can override any of the keyboard shortcuts for any of the HUD options. Next, if we look at HUD metrics, these are the graphs within the HUD that display the live metric analysis. We can remove or add any of the metrics available to us for our platform. So, let's remove GPU duration and add. Scroll through the list. These metrics are going to be different depending on the platform that you are analyzing on. But let's add just a random EU active. So once we add that metric, we'll click apply. It'll tell me that this group that I've selected already exists, but we can rewrite it. So now next time I run the HUD, you'll see these 4 metrics displayed in the HUD. If we go to the HUD options, we can see what is the initial display mode, FPS only, FPS gaps or full. This can be changed with Control F1. We can change the background color, transparency, location of the HUD, and the FPS limit when the FPS limit override is turned on. Triggers, which is probably the most important part of the graphics monitor. When you enable triggers, you can set the metric, which in this case I've set FPS, and the trigger condition. So if my FPS drops below 60, I want to do a frame capture, and I could either pause the application or terminate. And then I can set a retrigger delay saying that every 5 seconds, if this condition is true, I will capture frame. Some of the exceptions are if I can set an exception that says if I have an override enabled, say if I have disabled all my draw calls, I don't really want to capture frame at that point. So I can click this box to make sure that I'm not capturing frames while an override is selected. In the next tab, we have our tracing options. Here, the trace duration is set to 5 seconds. I said this in the workloads video, but you can change this as well. So you can also capture at the start of your application. If you view fine-grained system-wide metrics, it's going to capture metrics in between a single frame. You're going to see a small performance hit, but in Platform Analyzer, you'll be able to see the metrics in between each CPU and GPU frame. And you can collect the DMA packet type. Again, in Platform Analyzer, this will allow you to be able to see the DMA packet type. Next, let's open up an application in the HUD. Here I already have Graphics Monitor running, so we'll just right-click and Analyze Application. Let's choose City Racer. Once the application is open, you notice that the frame rate populates in the top left. If we hit Control F1, we'll cycle through the different view modes of the HUD. The first view mode are the 4 metrics graphs. These can be changed in the profiles as we've discussed before, but currently we have target app CPU load, GPU busy, package power, and EUs active. These graphs change in real time, and you can read both the median value, the high value, and the low value altogether. In addition, you can see some of the overrides we have here. We briefly talked about some of these overrides in the workflows video, but let's go over them again. First, let's go over the disables draw call metric. If we hit Control-Alt-N, the screen will turn black. You can also notice that our frame rate goes up. This is one of the first steps in identifying whether our application is GPU or CPU bound. Since the frame rate went up, we can assume that this is GPU bound. It's also good to check, though, if we disable the hardware and do the null hardware override, that the frame rate also goes up. In this instance, we can also see the frame rate go up. meaning that we're not GPU driver bound. We'll just hit Control Alt and H to disable that. There are a few more overrides that are also helpful in the HUD. If we hit Control Alt 5, we'll turn on 2x2 textures. This will help identify if you're texture bound. We can turn that off. There's many other overrides as well, such as you can disable the Z test, which is Control Alt Z. You can notice that it cuts off a lot of the top portion of the screen, considering that the skybox was one of the last draw calls to be drawn. For more information about the overrides, you can look in our documentation. There you'll find a brief description of each override and helpful tips in optimizing your game based on these overrides. Next, let's take a look at System Analyzer with an Android application. System Analyzer is similar to the HUD, but has an interactive UI for viewing each metric. If we open up System Analyzer, you'll see a connection screen. Here you can connect to either this machine or enter in the IP address of a machine that you'd like to remotely analyze, or here we have our Bay Trail tablet that's connected via the Android debug bridge. Let's connect to our tablet. Here we can view the different applications that are available to analyze. You'll see System Profiling, System View to analyze system-wide metrics, System Applications that are applications that have already been installed onto the system, and then User Applications, applications that I have personally installed. Let's first take a look at City Racer. Once the application is loaded, you'll notice 4 swim lanes with live metrics. Each of these swim lanes can be populated with the various metrics on the left-hand side here. To look at one of these metrics, all you need to do is take one of the metrics and drag and drop it into another swim lane. You can have as many swim lanes as you want by dragging the metric in between 2 existing swim lanes. If you'd like to overlay metrics onto the same swim lane, all you need to do is hold Control and then drop it onto one of the swim lanes. Then you'll be able to see each of the metrics populating at the same time in the same swim lane. Like in the HUD, we have state overrides that we can do from System Analyzer. We can disable the draw calls, which then on the tablet, the screen will go black, disabling all the draw calls, but then we can also see our FPS improvement. This will tell us whether we're GPU or CPU bound. For more information about the state overrides, you can look at the documentation and find a brief description of each of the state overrides and how it can help you optimize your game. At the bottom left of the screen, in the platform settings section, you'll notice a CPU frequency override. This setting is helpful when trying to determine what exactly your bottleneck is. If you notice that you can move your CPU slider down and you don't see any frame rate difference, then you're probably GPU bound. In addition, in the top right hand side of the screen, you can view your resolution, whether VSync is enabled, and your API level. Thank you for taking the time to learn about the live analysis portions of GPA. If you have any questions, you can always post on our support forums on the Intel Developer Zone, or you can look in our description for links to our support pages. To learn more about the other components in GPA, please check out our other video tutorials. Thank you for watching.